So let's get things started with Luke Michas from Goplay.
I'd like to start by asking you all a question. Hopefully this is an easy one. How many of you play games on your mobile device? Go ahead and raise your hand if you do. Okay, this is awesome. I'm in the right spot. Let me ask you this. How many of you have never made a purchase using real money for in-game currency in those games that you play? Anybody here? There's 1, 2, 3. Maybe the rest of you are afraid to raise your hands, or you're just really committed gamers. That's good to know. You guys who raised your hands, you non-payers, as this industry calls you, you're part of the vast majority of gamers for free-to-play games on mobile devices. Sorry, I was just wondering where this was. Over the next 20 minutes, we're going to talk about this concept of turning steps to spend. And I'm going to be presenting to you some industry data and some surveys that we have put together over the last 3 or 4 years of free-to-play mobile gamers, and specifically how physical activity and earned physical effort can help move the needle on 2 of the biggest problems that this industry sees, which is, without a doubt, retention and conversion. Now, you guys, if you're game developers or publishers, probably very familiar with these industry statistics about retention over day 30. That tends to be quite a big challenge. And conversion rates in mobile games, you all know, sort of hovers around 2%. I mean, give or take, depending on the game. I think this was a stat last year from Unity that said it was less than 2%. And so at Goplay, when we started thinking about ways to solve this problem, we really wanted to ask a fundamental question, which was, can we use physical activity as a motivation loop to help improve those two metrics? And throughout this presentation, you're going to hear me use this phrase, motivation loop, or maybe just the loop. And so I want to make sure you guys understand what I'm talking about when I do say that. So the motivation loop that I'm referring to is one that we've built a platform around. And it really starts with a behavior that everybody does. Nearly every gamer is doing this every day, so it's nothing new. And that's walking, basically creating steps. You can do that through walking, running, any other physical activity. That behavior is tracked. If you've got a mobile device, a phone, your phone's tracking that. And lots of us have, I'm wearing an Apple Watch, lots of us have watches, and lots of us also have dedicated fitness trackers, like Whoop, there's Oura Rings, Whoop bands, iOS, Android, doesn't matter, there's lots of trackers. And so this motivation loop is actually quite simple. It's taking the steps that you have and converting that into a reward point. In Goplay, we call that a go bit. That's the reward point. And then you can use those go bits, or that reward point, to do something with it. And specifically what we're talking about is the ability to use that use that reward point and exchange it for in-game currency in an enrolled game. You can also use it kind of the way you can use airline miles. And that is pay for part of an in-game currency purchase using your rewards points, and then you pay the rest in cash. So kind of like an airline that lets you pay with miles and then the rest in cash. And as I mentioned, this loop is actually quite powerful because whenever you're trying to modulate behavior of any group, it's very difficult to get people to do something new. And this one's built in, so it doesn't really require you to do anything new. And so as I go through the following slides, which really dive into specific questions that we asked over 3,000 mobile gamers, I want to sort of set the stage for you guys. The scenario that we gave them was, imagine there's an app that lets you, rewards you for the steps you take with a reward point. You can then use those reward points to either pay for part of an in-game purchase or to exchange for in-game currency. And so with that sort of daily loop, that was the underlying scenario. So diving into some of the questions, particularly around how it can affect retention, we first asked this question. Would this motivation loop, would it make you play your current games more often? And we saw a pretty significant response, especially on the top two boxes. So this one was just short of 1,000 gamers, and over 1/4 of them said very likely. And that's an interesting metric because it does start to point towards re-engagement with the game, which ultimately helps retention. And in particular, if you look at the top two boxes, 70% at least likely to play more often. So that was something that was sort of encouraging to see, and we were starting to think, okay, well, physical activity, maybe there is something to this. We asked a second question of them, which was, when would you play the game that you just either bought currency in or traded your rewards points for? And this is really a question designed to measure a specific part of this loop, which is that last two steps. What is the lag time between the using of the rewards points to either exchange for currency or to make an in-game currency purchase, and actually then firing up the game and playing, doing a gaming session. And this one was quite remarkable. We saw 46%, nearly half, said immediately. They told us that the very next thing they're going to do is play that game. And that's, behaviorally, that's a pretty significant trigger for gameplay sessions. And once again, also, if we look at the top two boxes here, 69% were indicating to us that they were going to play in less than 24 hours. That's pretty impressive, we thought, and we wanted to take a look at that and measure it sort of against another question that was able to kind of like dive into, is there a first step to this frequency question? Is there a first step to this getting people to earn the currency and then get into the games and play? And there is. It's actually when we told them in the beginning the scenario, which was, imagine there's an app that allows you to participate in this motivation loop. So we asked them how often would they check their earnings progress, which, said another way, how often are you going to go check how many steps you've had and how many steps or how many rewards points that currency has generated for you. And as you can see, multiple times a day was the far and away largest response. It's 42%. We've asked this over probably 3 or 4 surveys over the last 4 or 5 years. It always stays consistent with the top box being multiple times. And in one survey in particular, we had actually broken that down to 1 to 2 times a day, 3 to 5 times a day, and we topped that out at 9+. And 18% of these folks said 9 or more times a day, which was interesting. That's sort of Facebook-ish territory, at least when Facebook was still popular. This is important because this is an engagement metric in the motivation loop. And you can think of it this way. Daily checking is daily thinking about playing games. And for games that are enrolled, it really becomes a game awareness moment. And this is happening all outside of the game. There's no additional kind of UA spend on this. There's no marketing. This is really happening every minute of the day that a gamer's not actually playing that game. So it's the majority of time. And the more we can get people to be having these game awareness moments, these multiple touch points throughout the week, throughout the day, the more likelihood, the higher the likelihood is we're going to trigger a game session. Yeah, you guys probably did the math on that before I clicked the button. 73%, at least once a day. So it was pretty significant what we were seeing on the retention side, but we also talked about the conversion side. Those retention metrics are actually across both payers and non-payers. We didn't segment them. Although if you're interested in that data, we have it, and come find me. I'm happy to nerd out on all the data with you guys if you're into that. On the conversion side, we specifically wanted to look at one group, and that's this vast majority of gamers, which is the non-payers. And we wanted to really dig into, will this convert somebody? Can we get a non-payer to actually buy something? And the large question that we were asking was, if they could use their earned effort points to pay for part of a purchase, that being kind of the mechanic, would it make a difference? And what we discovered was interesting. And I say the word discovered because I haven't heard the term I'm about to tell you guys before, so I'm going to claim we discovered it. The industry looks at gaming, and when you read kind of industry data and statistics on it, it's really binary. We talk about payers and we talk about the non-paying group. And as I said in the beginning, the vast majority of these are non-payers. Two things: number one, these guys are not to scale, and two, there are actually 100 total there. So this is actually the graphics right. So. It turns out that our data uncovered a third segment. And that third segment we're calling the conditional payers. Now, what we found out is that a conditional payer will pay if the conditions of the transaction are different. And what I mean by that is, or what I should say is that this third segment, we found out through the data that I'm about to share with you, is actually is meaningful. Somewhere between 5 and 15% of those non-payers are actually conditional payers. They're willing to do it if you give them the right transaction. And so we asked in our survey to these non-payers only, how likely would you be to purchase if your reward points covered 10% of the purchase price and the rest you paid in cash? And then we asked them these in tiers, so up to 25%, 50%, and finally up to 75%. And we saw with the conditional payers, so just to kind of set this up here, along the bottom there is the growing paid with rewards points from 10% up to 75%. And when we looked at the non-payers who responded likely to buy, you can see it started at about 11%, and it kind of grows modestly as it goes up to 50%, and then you see it actually dip down at 75%. And that's a little bit weird until you see what the very likely group said. Very likely started at about 5% or 4.5%. Now, admittedly, that's like basically at the margin of error for this, so you could say that's zero. But it quickly outpaces the margin of error significantly, especially on the very likely. And as I mentioned, the likely group at 75% dipped. That's because their investment in making that purchase actually went up. They became very likelies. And so we see that group start to kind of pull away. This is pretty significant in that in that very likely group, from 10% up to 50%, that's a 3 times growth of the intent in that group. And at 75%, it's actually 5 times. So that's using the base of 4.6 to 12.8. That's a 3 times increase. So that's kind of like, wow, that actually seems like there are conditional buyers out there. Now, there's some non-payers that did raise their hand in this room, and I'm not going to make you raise your hand again. But if you could have paid for some in-app purchases or in-game currency purchases in the games that you play, effectively with your steps, would you have made a purchase? This data would say that, yeah, some of them would. And maybe some of these guys in here are conditional payers. So kind of to put this in context, on the left here, you see a typical discount. Now, this is just an illustration of two identical in-game currency purchases. On the left, $20, it's a bag of 200 coins. Typical discount, you see this in games all the time. 50% discount, so it's a $10 purchase. And the non-paying group doesn't buy it. They've already decided psychologically, I don't spend money, I'm not gonna buy it. And so effectively, this is speaking to the payers you already have. And the non-paying group is saying, I've already made a decision about this, I don't buy in-game currency. On the right, we have the exact same purchase or offer. And with an earned effort discount, you're now paying for part of that effectively with your steps. You're still spending $10, but we saw on the graph before and the intent that they were showing is that now that conditional payer is saying, ooh, now it's not silly for me to spend money in video games. It's now silly for me not to make the most of the reward points that I earned through my physical activity. So why? That's kind of the big question. Why does this work? And it comes down to three things. Earned effort from physical activity feels real. If you walk 10,000 steps or whatever you walk, you feel it. It's different than other types of effort that you spend. Our brains kind of calculate and assign a value to effort that's gained through physical activity differently than they do every other type of effort. The second reason is that it's done. That means this is latent. If there's latent value here. When a gamer is all of a sudden presented with, hey, I've already taken all these steps, now I can do something with it, and if I don't, I'm going to waste those steps that I took. It is what I was talking about in the beginning of this, that this behavior is not something we're asking them to start doing in order to get a reward. It's something that they've already done. So we're trying to use this motivation loop to maximize that. And lastly, it amplifies. And specifically what I'm talking about here is really two things that you probably are familiar with and heard a number of times. And that's the sunk cost fallacy and loss aversion. Lots of retail mechanics kind of rely on that. This amplifies it. When they're faced with an offer to maximize their effort that they put out, it takes that sunk cost fallacy and really cranks it up. And the loss aversion part kicks in as that mechanism in our brains that just say, hey, I do not want to waste this. I want to make the most of what I earned through my physical activity. So that's what we've been working on at Goplay. I am going to turn this over for questions. If you have any, happy to answer them and happy to get with anybody in here that wants to talk a bit more about this. I would be completely shot by my co-founder if I did not tell you guys, Goplay has built this platform. It exists. It is production ready, and we would love to talk to game developers looking to enroll in our free platform, and we can talk a bit more about that one-on-one. So thank you. I appreciate your time.